Right now, Chris Paul's legacy is completely riding on whether or not he wins an NBA championship. Because if we're being real, CP3 should go down as one of the best point guards the NBA has ever seen. He is a 9-time All-Star, a 4-time member of the first team All-NBA, and just looking at his 2009 season alone, as a 23-year-old on the Hornets, he averaged 22.8 points, 11 assists, 5.5 rebounds, 2.8 steals, and finished the year with a 30 PER. So yeah, prime Chris Paul was pretty amazing, and you know what else? High school Chris Paul was pretty amazing too. So what's up guys, how's everyone doing? And yes, today we are talking about Chris Paul. More specifically, we are talking about Chris Paul in high school, and more specifically, we are talking about one of the most incredible basketball stories that you will ever hear that took place on a basketball court. So trust me, grab some popcorn because this story is amazing. But before we get to that, I want to give a huge shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring this video. Now, SeatGeek is an app that takes all of the best ticket prices from around the internet and puts them all in one place on their app for you to get the best deal. It's also really easy to see how good every individual ticket's price is because SeatGeek scores every ticket on a scale of 0 to 100 based on how good that ticket's price is. And one of the coolest things is that before you even buy the ticket, you can actually use SeatGeek to see what the view from your seats would be, which is pretty awesome because it's like you're previewing the experience. So if you want the best deals for the best prices, download SeatGeek right now and use the promo code 2KMike for $20 off your first order. And so now let's talk about Chris Paul. Growing up, Chris Paul always looked up to his grandfather, Nathaniel Jones. Known as Papa Chili to everyone in their community, Nathaniel was the definition of a self-made man. He was the first black man to ever open up a service station in North Carolina and was known as the type of person to let people open up tabs if they didn't have enough money and to even lend money to those who were falling on hard times. The relationship between Chris and Nathaniel was special, as Chris spent all of his summers working at the service station while soaking up all of the life lessons that Nathaniel taught him. The two were close, so close that Chris even said that his grandfather was his best friend, which is what made November 14th so special. Because on that day, Chris officially chose Wake Forest in his high school gym in front of his family, friends, and fellow students. Nathaniel was also there, and he would say, "I will remember this day for the rest of my life," which is what also made the night of November 15th, 2002 so difficult. On that day, Chris Paul was a high school senior, the class president of his school, and had everything going for him. His future was so bright. He was a year away from becoming a star at Wake Forest, and from there, as we know, he would continue to go on to become an NBA superstar. However, none of that would matter on this night, because when walking in a park on the night of November 15th, Nathaniel Jones was jumped by 5 kids around the age of Chris. They would bound Nathaniel's wrists, duct tape his mouth, and then beat him to death with pipes. This was all so that they could steal his wallet. They took a man's life for his wallet. The 5 kids would of course go to jail, and 2 of them would receive life sentences. But that justice really didn't matter. What mattered was that the North Carolina community had lost one of its leaders, and Chris Paul had lost one of his best friends. As he remembers thinking, "Everyone has to die, but I just thought my granddad was one of those people who never would." Of course, like anyone would be, Chris was devastated. He wasn't sure how he was going to be able to go on with life in general, let alone continue to play basketball. His grandpa had always been his biggest fan and was always at his games. In fact, Chris has said he's been running the service station for years, and he'd let his customers know if I had a game. He'd say, "I'm closing up early to go see my grandson play," which is why Chris remembers thinking, "How can I go out there on the court knowing my grandfather's not there?" But still, life does move on, and sometimes in order to cope with loss, you have to go through with your normal routine, which is why just 2 days later, Chris was out there on the court playing basketball. Still, he would share the anxious feelings he had with his aunt, and so his aunt told him, "How about 61 points for your granddad?" Which led to Chris thinking, "That would be lovely, but ain't no way I can do that." Being real, 61 points was obviously a ridiculous amount, but it was also a very very meaningful amount. The reason for this was that these 61 points represented the 61 years that Nathaniel had spent on this earth. And so Chris would go onto this court just 2 days after his grandfather's death and was on a mission. No one could stop him. It was as if this was his destiny. From the moment the game started, Chris was unstoppable. He drained every jump shot he took. He blew by defenders at will and scored basket after basket. In the second quarter alone, he dropped 24 points, and by the time the fourth quarter hit, his team was up big, but he was not finished yet. And so there he was, dribbling the ball up the court with 59 points and one thing left to do. He would explode past his defender, lay the ball in the basket, and was fouled. Miraculously, he had done it. He had scored 61 points to honor the man he loved. Chris remembers thinking, and I laid it up and I got fouled and it went in. And I lay there for a second and was just overwhelmed because I knew that at this moment in time, this is something I'd never forget, ever. It just felt like I could have died and went to heaven right there. And to cap this all off, to make this perfect, Chris intentionally airballed his free throw to finish with exactly 61. Then he walked off the court and collapsed into his father's arms, crying for the man he missed so much. It was an incredibly emotional time, but in my opinion, this tells you everything you need to know about Chris Paul. Even at that young age, he had more drive than everyone around him. It has been that toughness and drive that has led him to become an NBA superstar, and it is that toughness and drive that should give him your respect. And so thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I mean, I've just got to say that I have so much respect for Chris Paul after diving deeper into this story. I mean, I had always known about it, I had heard about it at one point, but I didn't know how close he was to his grandpa. I can't imagine how hard that would be, and to score 61 points is just amazing. Seriously, that just seems like some kind of destiny. Truly incredible. But anyway, if you are new to this channel, make sure to subscribe. I do NBA videos or basketball related videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday around 6 p.m. Eastern time. And if you're already subscribed, thank you for being so awesome. Seriously, you are the man, and as always, have an awesome day, guys, and cue that music.